Karen Pemberton's designer sun hat flew clean off her head as she belly flopped into the Willowbrook Estates community pool with all the grace of a concrete mixer. The 20-pound stack of HOA violation notices she'd been clutching scattered across the water like confetti at a very boring parade. Her phone, the one with 47 unread voicemails from disgruntled neighbors, plunged straight to the bottom with a satisfying glub. "Waked TTHE," she sputtered, surfacing in a tangle of wet polyester and righteous indignation. But her complaint died in her throat as she spotted something that made her blood pressure spike even higher than usual. Mrs. Chen from 42 Maple Drive was actually enjoying herself in the Jacuzzi, brazenly violating HOA Rule 247.3b regarding excessive splashing and unseemly merriment. Karen dog paddled toward the Jacuzzi with the determination of a heat-seeking missile, her wet clipboard somehow still clutched in one manicured hand. "Excuse me, Gloria. I need to speak with you about your azalea bushes. They're 3 inches too tall and, frankly, an eyesore to the entire." The words evaporated as a 6-foot python raised its diamond-patterned head from the bubbling water, regarding Karen with the kind of cold intelligence usually reserved for tax auditors and middle school principals. "Oh," Mrs. Chen said pleasantly, not moving an inch. "You've met Herbert. He moved in last Tuesday. Lovely temperament, really." Karen's scream could have shattered windows in 3 zip codes. She backdoled so fast, she created her own personal tsunami, crashing into the pool's edge with enough force to crack the expensive Italian tiles she personally approved last spring. "Snakey. There's a snake in the Jacuzzi," she shrieked, pointing wildly while treading water. "This is a clear violation of HOA regulations. Pets must be pre-approved and registered with the Architectural Committee." Herbert the python seemed to yawn, displaying an impressive set of fangs. "Actually," Mrs. Chen said, pulling out a laminated document from seemingly nowhere, "I submitted Herbert's residency application 6 months ago, filed in triplicate as required. You approved it yourself, Karen. See? Your signature's right there." Karen snatched the soggy papers, her face cycling through several shades of purple as she recognized her own flourishing signature. In her zealous pursuit of HOA compliance, she'd apparently rubber-stamped a python permit without reading it. This can't be legal," she stammered, water still dripping from her power bob haircut. "I'll have the county health department here by morning." "The fire department? The snake police?" Mrs. Chen smiled serenely as Herbert slithered closer to Karen's end of the Jacuzzi. "Herbert's quite friendly once you get to know him. He's particularly fond of people who make sudden movements and loud noises." Karen's next move would determine whether she'd maintain her iron grip on Willowbrook Estates, or whether Herbert might just be the beginning of a much bigger problem than overgrown azaleas. Karen's home office looked like a legal tornado had touched down. Owl binders lay splayed across her mahogany desk, their color-coded tabs creating a rainbow of regulatory chaos. She'd been poring over the bylaws for 6 straight hours, fueled by nothing but spite and increasingly bitter coffee. "Aha!" she exclaimed, jabbing her finger at page 847 of the supplemental addendums. "Exotic pet registration requires a full veterinary health inspection. I've got you now, Gloria Chen." She speed-dialed Dr. Morrison, Willowbrook's approved veterinarian, practically vibrating with vindication. "Dr. Morrison? Karen Pemberton, I need you to inspect a python for HOA compliance." "What do you mean, which python? How many pythons do you think we have in this community?" The pause that followed made Karen's stomach drop. "Actually, Mrs. Pemberton, I've been meaning to call you. I've had several requests for exotic pet inspections this month. All properly filed, all approved by you, according to the paperwork." Karen's coffee cup slipped from nerveless fingers, shattering on her pristine hardwood floors. "Several? How many is several? Let's see. There's Herbert the python, obviously. Then there's Clementine the iguana. She belongs to the Garcias. The Johnsons have that lovely albino corn snake, Snowball. Oh, and the Patels just registered a rather impressive boa constrictor named Mahatma." The room spun. Karen gripped her desk so hard her knuckles went white. This is impossible. I would never approve. I have all the forms right here, Mrs. Pemberton. Your signatures on everyone. Very thorough applications, actually. Much more detailed than the usual golden retriever registrations. Karen ended the call and stumbled to her filing cabinet. Her hands shook as she rifled through months of applications, finding form after form bearing her signature. Applications she definitely didn't remember signing. Each one meticulously crafted, buried between requests for fence repairs and garden modifications. The doorbell rang, playing the first few notes of Fleur Elise with mechanical precision. Karen opened it to find Mrs. Chen standing on her doorstep, holding a plate of homemade cookies and wearing an expression of pure innocence. "Hello, Karen. I thought you might be hungry after all that swimming. You looked positively exhausted." "You," Karen breathed. "You did this. All of it." Mrs. Chen stepped inside without invitation, her eyes scanning the chaos of Karen's office with obvious satisfaction. "Did what, dear? Brought cookies? That oatmeal raisin, your favorite, according to your HOA bio. The snakes. The conspiracy." Karen waved frantically at her destroyed office. "You somehow tricked me into approving an entire zoo." "Oh my," Mrs. Chen said, settling into Karen's leather chair with casual authority. "That does sound like something I might do. If I were the sort of person who'd spent 3 years being harassed about the height of my grass and the color of my mailbox." Karen stared at this woman she'd dismissed as just another rule-breaking neighbor. Mrs. Chen had played a game Karen didn't even know she was playing, and won it so thoroughly that Karen was only now seeing the board. "What do you want?" Karen whispered. Mrs. Chen bit into a cookie, considering. "World peace would be nice, but I'll settle for watching Herbert enjoy his new home. He gets lonely in winter, you know. I'm thinking of applying for a companion snake, maybe something larger. Burmese pythons are lovely this time of year." The cookie plate sat between them like a peace offering laced with poison. Karen realized she was facing her first real opponent, someone who'd learned her own tricks and perfected them. Karen hauled herself out of the pool like a drowned rat with a law degree, designer sandals squelching with each furious step. Water pooled around her feet as she jabbed at her backup phone, the one she kept specifically for HOA emergencies and other neighborhood crises. Animal control. "Yes, this is Karen Pemberton, HOA president of Willowbrook Estates. I need an immediate emergency response. There's a..." "What do you mean? What kind of animal?" "A python. In our community Jacuzzi." She paced in tight circles, leaving wet footprints on the premium concrete decking she'd personally selected. Behind her, Herbert had apparently decided the conversation was boring and was now sunbathing on the Jacuzzi's edge like a scaly poolside lounger. "No, I don't know if it's venomous. It's a snake. In a Jacuzzi. How is this not your problem?" Mrs. Chen climbed out of the water with the casual confidence of someone who'd never received a single HOA violation notice. "Actually, Karen, pythons aren't venomous. They're constrictors. They squeeze their prey to death." Karen's face went white. "That's not helping, Gloria." "Also," Mrs. Chen continued, toweling off with infuriating calm, "I think you'll find that animal control can't remove legally registered HOA-approved pets. Herbert has more paperwork than most residents." The phone slipped from Karen's wet fingers. In her 15 years as HOA president, she'd never encountered a loophole she couldn't close, a regulation she couldn't weaponize, or a neighbor she couldn't intimidate into compliance. But here she stood, dripping and defeated, outsmarted by a 70-year-old retiree and her pet snake. "How?" she whispered. Mrs. Chen's smile could have powered the community's decorative fountain. "I learned from the best here. You've sent me 247 violation notices in the past 3 years. Did you really think I wouldn't start reading the fine print?" Karen's mind raced through the HOA handbook she'd memorized like scripture. There had to be something, a clause, a subcategory, a microscopic regulation that would save her authority. The noise ordinance," she declared triumphantly. Snakes hiss. Excessive hissing between the hours off. Herbert's a very quiet snake, Mrs. Chen interrupted, unlike certain HOO presidents who shriek by the pool at all hours. A small crowd had gathered, the Hendersons from Elm Street, the new couple from the corner unit, even grumpy Mr. Peterson, who usually only emerged to complain about leaf blowers. They were all staring at Karen with expressions ranging from amused to openly delighted. For the first time in her reign, as Willowbrook's self-appointed guardian of property values, Karen Pemberton was the spectacle instead of the spectacle maker. "This isn't over," she muttered, gathering the scattered remains of her dignity along with her soggy violation notices. "I'll find something. There's always something." But as she marched toward the pool gate, she couldn't shake the feeling that Herbert's unblinking stare was following her every move, and that Mrs. Chen's soft chuckle contained promises of future surprises that would make a Jacuzzi python seem downright mundane. 3 days later, Karen stood at her bedroom window at 6 a.m., watching Mrs. Chen walk what appeared to be a 4-foot iguana on a rhinestone leash. The iguana wore a tiny sun hat that perfectly matched Mrs. Chen's gardening outfit. Karen's eye twitched. Her phone buzzed with yet another call from the local news station wanting to interview the HOO president who approved the Willowbrook Reptile Sanctuary. The story had gone viral after someone, definitely Mrs. Chen, had posted a video of Herbert wearing heart-shaped sunglasses while lounging in the jacuzzi. "This ends today," Karen muttered, marching downstairs with military precision. She found Mrs. Chen in the community garden, teaching Clementine the iguana to help with the weeding. The sight of a large reptile delicately removing dandelions while wearing protective booties was almost enough to break Karen's brain. "Gloria, we need to talk." Mrs. Chen looked up with the serene expression of someone who'd achieved inner peace through strategic revenge. "Of course, dear. Clementine and I were just discussing the proper pruning techniques for roses. She has surprisingly good instincts for horticulture." "Cut the act," Karen snapped. "I know what you're doing. This isn't about pets or regulations or even revenge. You're trying to get me removed as HOA president." "Am I?" Mrs. Chen stood, brushing soil from her gloves. "That's an interesting theory. Tell me more." Karen's carefully prepared speech about property values and community standards died in her throat. Looking at Mrs. Chen's knowing smile, she realized that everything she'd planned to say was exactly what Mrs. Chen expected, the same rigid, rule-obsessed response that had gotten her into this mess. For the first time in 15 years, Karen Pemberton was forced to think outside the HOA handbook. "You're right," she said quietly. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose almost imperceptibly. "About what, specifically?" "All of it. The violation notices. The power trips. I turned this place into a prison where I was the only guard." Karen sank onto a nearby bench, suddenly feeling every one of her 53 years. I wanted everything to be perfect. Property values up, complaints down, everything exactly as it should be. And how did that work out for you?" Karen laughed bitterly. "I'm being outsmarted by a snake-owning retiree who probably learned more about our own regulations in 3 years than I understood in 15. Mrs. Chen sat beside her, Clementine settling between them like a scaly peace offering. "You know what your real problem is, Karen? You forgot that this is supposed to be a community, not a dictatorship. So what happens now? You destroy me with a parade of exotic pets?" "That depends," Mrs. Chen said thoughtfully. "How do you feel about compromise?" Karen looked around the garden she'd barely noticed in years of rushing between violations. When had the roses grown so beautiful? When had the community actually started feeling like a place people might want to live, rather than simply comply? What did you have in mind? Mrs. Chen's smile was still dangerous, but now it held a glimmer of something that might have been hope. "Well, Herbert's been asking about getting more involved in community activities. He'd make an excellent pool monitor, very intimidating to rule breakers." Despite everything, Karen found herself almost smiling. Almost. But as they shook hands over Clementine's watchful gaze, Karen couldn't help wondering what other surprises Mrs. Chen might have hidden in those meticulously filed applications, and whether this truce was the beginning of a beautiful friendship or just the opening move in an even more elaborate game.